The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings from 1993. So as we said last time, neither one of us had gone past the original Pumpkinhead. So from here on out, 2, 3, and 4, fresh blood for us, essentially.
Fresh pumpkin.
Fresh pumpkin. It's a nice ripe gourd here for us. I've never seen this one, so I can only assume that director Jeff Burr walked into the conference room and just wrote Pumpkinhead with a money sign at the end of this for the sequel. Pumpkinheads, there's going to be multiple Pumpkinheads running around a swamp with a money sign just like Aliens, and nah, just still one Pumpkinhead, I suppose.
There's one and only. That's it.
I knew that wouldn't be the case, but I was sort of hoping we'd get like a whole hive full, a whole hatch full of Pumpkinheads.
Yes, exactly.
Following the xenomorph.
Perhaps a pumpkin that was better than the other ones. Bigger, perhaps like not like a big pumpkin, but like a great
pumpkin? Yeah.
Something like that. But no
great pumpkin here.
I got a rock.
Yeah, but directed by Jeff Burr, who's no slouch in these types of horror films. He directed a couple of Puppet Master sequels. He directed Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 3, which we'll get to eventually. A few others in this style. So, and by all accounts,
Stepfather 2,
not seen that. By all accounts, just like Stan Winston, a hell of a guy to have around on set, nice guy and all that kind of stuff. So that always goes a few miles for me personally.
Yeah, and apparently like he just like stepped in at the last minute. Whoever was directing this originally bailed, and they're like, well, we have, I believe it's, I read it was like about 3 weeks and sub $1 million, like below $1 million budget. Because the Pumpkinhead 1 didn't do that great. It only made like about like $1 million, which is, it still made its money back, but that's not enough for those vultures in Hollywood.
Right.
It wasn't enough for them to care about it. So this one just went straight to video, another live entertainment movie. So also this was done in 1994, so it would be post Silent Night, Deadly Night, The Toy Maker.
Okay.
So we know that the character from Toy Maker that worked at Live Video.
Oh, yes.
She might still work there, although she probably moved after that. I don't know.
There you go. You got run out of town.
After that toy making scandal.
Exactly.
But yeah, this like quality wise, even compared to Toy Maker, you can just feel how cheap this movie is.
Yeah, absolutely. At the top, though, whenever I watch a movie like this, I do get excited when I watch the starring, and part of me wants to stop doing that because I want to just be surprised and excited when they show up on screen. But man, from the top, you've got Andrew Robinson, you've got Soleil Moon Frye, doesn't carry that much cachet anymore, but Leanna Quigley, so I'm already kind of in that 80s, 90s horror, not going to say royalty, but that merry band of heroes that run around together and make horror movies and show up on each other's sets. And that always kind of makes me happy.
Big names, including, and to some extent, Amy Dolenz, daughter of Mickey Dolenz, an actress that has had run in TV and movies like that. But there was a period of time, for me anyway, in the 90s, where it's like a lot of these movies, it feels like she would show up in.
Yep.
You turn on like HBO or Cinemax and they'd be doing one of these. There's Amy Dolenz, like Ticks, Witchboard 2. She always kind of struck me as like the yin to Nicole Eggert's yang. She generally played like nicer girls than Nicole Eggert, but it's like in that same world.
Yeah. So it's at the top to me. It had a little bit of promise. I don't know.
That's not a bad cast.
Not a bad
for this
cast.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So we start off right away with some great country guitar licking. And it's a 1958 flashback of a witch putting food out for someone or something. And it's a really crisp black and white photography shooting back. And we see a bunch of greasers show up in the car. And they just end up messing with this poor, what's the right word? Disadvantaged kid who has a growth on the side of his head. He looks very much... I still can't place it. He looks very much like somebody else in a horror movie that I'm having trouble placing. with a big bulbous kind of forehead and stuff. But
Someone from Nightbreed?
that could be.
Yeah.
But,
Elephant Head Jr.? I don't know.
You know what?
Elephant Head, Elephant Man.
I think it was Elephant Man because
Yeah,
it's got
he's
a
got a
very
little bit-
similar forehead
Yeah.
prosthetic going.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
It's really not as severe as John Hurt's character, but yeah, it definitely has that going. And this whole bit, I maybe it's just because it's greasers in black and white, but it just has this very Stephen King feel to it.
I was going to say that.
Particularly Stephen King's TV movies feel to it.
Sometimes they come back, that kind of thing. From what I remember, that's got some greaser kids, bullies in it.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes they come back to harass a deformed kid.
Right. So they beat up this kid with baseball bats, and all of a sudden there is a moment where that poor kid just looks like a stunt guy in a wig. And I was just like, guys, you forgot the prosthetics on that one shot, but whatever. And
there's a lot of going to war with the army you have in this movie.
Very
where you
true.
Can feel how like rushed the production was, where it's like, that's the take we're using. Move on.
Yeah, right. We're losing light. So they beat him up. They hang him up on this like hanging chain that's over a mine shaft. And so they hang him up on this chain, and then they just kind of like slash him up with a pocket knife and drop him into the mine shaft.
Yeah, which was odd. Just like, so they're all hooting and hollering, beating up this kid who lives in the woods named Tommy, and who's deformed or whatever. But just like how they're all like, we're all fine with murder. Yeah. Beating him up and I asked them that. I'm not condoning that, but it's one thing. But when the main guy, the ringleader, flips open his knife and just starts slashing away at him, they're all like, this is great.
Yeah.
We have no problems with this whatsoever.
Natural escalation. So we go back to today. It's called Farron Woods. So I've just decided that I'm probably going to call this character Garrick for the entire time. So this is Andrew Robinson. He plays fan favorite Deep Space Nine character Garrick, the Cardassian Taylor, I guess but
maybe spy,
maybe deep operative type of guy.
Yeah.
So I love him so much in that show. So
he's great.
Yeah, Garrick is the local lawman here. He and his wife talk about how they're going to make a new home of this place.
Well, it's weird me out because he looks like, with his hair and mustache, he looks so much like Sheriff Cinder from Night Beast. The main character from that is just like the further adventures. And this one, you could argue, I mean, like Pumpkinhead, the way this movie plays out, in fact, Jeff Burr calls it an anthology sequel, where it's like the same thing, but, a little bit different.
Right.
And you could argue like that this is sort of a different, in the sort of folk horror, oral history kind of thing, a different retelling of the Pumpkinhead myth.
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas I prefer to think of it as a different telling of the Sheriff Cinder myth of that this is his adventure over here fighting Pumpkinhead. Like he's like a Kolchak kind of guy. Where he just keeps getting sheriff positions in small towns where this shit happens.
Got my Kolchak box set right over there on my desk.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yes.
I still have only seen the first one, but yeah, so he's moved back. When he was a kid, all he wanted to do was get out. But now he's back. He's tired of the violence in New York, which I like. When he's getting ready, he's like,
and as for this, I'm damn happy to say that with the exception of some target practice, I won't be using it much.
Like, what was he doing in New York? Who was he mowing down day after day?
Cut to, we're already immediately into kind of teen slasher mode.
Yes.
So more so than the first one, because we're introduced to our convertible full of ruffians who don't look too terribly rough. That's kind of one of my pet peeves in a bunch of movies like this, where it shows like teenage bullies and they always show them to be like punks or metalheads or something like that.
Right.
Most of the bullies were just kind of like normie looking guys or something.
Yeah.
So at least in my experience. Anyway,
Jock or jock adjacent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's also like, that was my first hint that, this is a very different world than Pumpkinhead, the first one, because there's cars and to school.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, Pumpkinhead one, it seemed like it took place in an area where there wasn't a lot of book learning. And so this like, okay, so now it's just a small town, which, I mean, it doesn't preclude that from happening. I mean, they don't really give it a huge location of where it's supposed to be. So it could be the same area, could not. It's just on the other side of the mountain.
One town over on the other side of the graveyard, something like that. Yeah. They do make a big deal about sparking up a joint, which, considering today's landscape is extra kind of silly, actually.
Yeah.
But they're rough because they're smoking marijuana.
These are like Soleil Moon Frye is in there with some of the other people, and J. Trevor Edmond is their ringleader.
Yeah.
As Danny. It is here that we're introduced to Jenny Braddock, played by Amy Dolenz, who's the daughter of the sheriff. And we know that they have a very tumultuous relationship, but they're like, oh, hey, it's the new girl.
Yeah.
And then they try to show off how bad they are, and she one-ups them.
Right.
She just hits that J like she's E40.
Yeah.
Like, just no problem.
We cut over to the sheriff is meeting the judge for the first time. And I know there's more going on in this scene, but I was immediately like flashing back to like, yeah, we're in Pumpkinhead Roadhouse territory all over again, where we've got the mayor, we've got the sheriff, we've got the judge, and I'm kind of digging this whole Roadhouse vibe to the pumpkin. I keep trying to call it Pumpkin House, but maybe that
Pumpkin
is
House.
Truly the
Pumpkin
crossover.
House.
Right.
Yeah. There's your new sequel where it's a frat full of pumpkin heads.
There you go.
They get up to shenanigans.
Right.
That way, if we hit Wishmaster 3, Wishmaster on campus, with pumpkin heads, maybe we can do that.
Exactly.
The judge, whose name is Merle Dixon, which I guess was the name of Michael Rooker's character on Walking Dead.
Oh, yes.
Now, I watched the first 3 seasons of that show. I could not tell you anything about it. Do not remember it. But the judge, though, my man looking like Bartles and James, got a great little fedora hat, suspenders, just a quality look. He's kind of giving the sheriff the lay of the land, and another guy comes in complaining about how much hunting permits cost.
Right.
And he's like, oh, we go way back. We've been here forever. What a loser. Yeah. And I just love that line.
What a loser.
Like if we had a soundboard, I would be hitting that.
I'd be playing that
a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. The mayor's pretty incredible from his like ill-fitting suit. He's got big ass hair. He's got a guitar that he walks out with.
Do you know who that mayor is?
Who is that mayor?
That is Roger Clinton Jr.
From?
Brother of Bill Clinton.
Oh, goodness.
And he was a little bit of a pop culture figure. So
that's Roger Clinton.
Younger people.
Yes.
Yeah. Imagine Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
But instead of like doing drugs and having sex with prostitutes, he gets his head stuck in a banister. That's Roger Clinton.
No.
Yeah. Oh, golly gee. I mean, I think actually there was some like nefarious
there was
money stuff.
A little bit more, but...
Yeah, but in the public eye, he was always like
kind of a doof,
podunk brother.
Yeah.
So when I saw that it was him, like, well, that's where your budget went.
Yeah,
you got Roger Clinton.
Your day rate.
It does seem like there was some of that with some stunt casting with some of the cameos that show up.
Yep.
I think like Soleil Moon Frye. Not that she was a big name at this point, but she was trying to break out of being a child star and trying to,
Sure.
No one wanted to do horror.
Yep.
In the 90s before like the Scream stuff happened. So
yeah.
This was a chance to try to like do something a little bit different. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if some of the budget definitely just went to like, we don't need to worry about effects or coherency. We have Bill Clinton's brother.
Yeah. Which is the opposite of most horror production budgets, where it's just like, we don't need to rely on big names. We just need the monster.
Right. And it's amazing because I didn't find out who this is. I don't know how to even find this, but whoever his assistant is, it looks like he should be the mayor. Like he's got this amazing weird bowl cut.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just a fantastic like podunk guy. It was great. We meet the mayor because after the sheriff and the judge have their little discussion, the judge leaves, and then in voiceover's like,
by the way, your physical is scheduled for noon.
oh, I set up your physical.
Oh, yeah.
Why is this guy making doctor's appointments for you? Like, scheduled your physical for you. Oh, by the way, gave myself power of attorney. No big deal. Don't trouble yourself at all. It was easy.
Well, it is also that, the classic editing trope where they're just like, oh, we need something. So of course I go right to, if you ever get up on around Ontario, look me up. Writing with Death. So
watch out for snakes.
Watch out for snakes, definitely.
Yeah. But so he goes to see a doctor, and then we're introduced to the other sort of main protagonist of sorts, Delilah Pettibone.
Yes.
Which much like in Saw, that Eleanor Bonneville, much like Eleanor Bonneville from Jigsaw, like that is a very like dowager name, but no,
for sure.
Delilah Pettibone is the local doctor, and it is there that Roger Clinton shows up as the mayor, Bubba.
You got my guitar?
Sure do. Here you go, Mayor.
Did you cure it?
Well, it's tuned.
Thank you kindly, darling.
That's it. Like, why?
He's got a show to get to.
Which I like that being in Roger Clinton's writers. Like,
Exactly.
I don't care what I do. People got to know that I play guitar.
Hey, my brother does the sax. I'm not going to be outshone.
Yeah.
I'm a guitarist now.
Of course, he never plays it, but
Right. Yeah.
he opens it up, starts blowing into the guitar.
Right. See my brother do this on TV.
I'll show him.
The kids are now hanging out at a mine, complete with rusty hooks, beers, etc. You know, your standard Saturday afternoon activities.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, they're playing hooky. That's why they're by the hooks.
There you go. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Sheriff Garrick rolls up. Introductions are given all around, and it appears that, our hero is, in fact, Garrick's daughter, and the guy who kisses her is the son of the judge from the previous scene. So, Garrick takes her home while the hook swings back and forth in this, last shot, ominously. The teens are now driving at night, playing a game of turn off the headlights, turn them back on again on a country road. They hit an old lady. Is this the witch from the beginning? And my first thought was John, did you ever play that game, running around a country road in a car? No, of course not. Neither did I.
No. I always think, because I was thinking about, because this is such a trope in horror movies, I was thinking about, who they could possibly hit.
Right.
You could have the kids from Mulholland Drive, the kids from the gang from the first Final Destination movie when they're on their joyride. Right. The kids from I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Of course.
Just this mashup of them getting into different car accidents with these different punk teens driving bad.
It must have been something that writers of these movies did in the 80s, and it's just by the time that they got into their screenwriting career, they just started putting this trope in all in the mid 90s. So the 80s must have been a wild time for backroads country driving with no lights on.
Yeah, not something I ever did. I liked seeing where I was going.
Exactly.
But I mean, they are, particularly Danny, they're so starved for excitement being in this small town.
Yeah.
TikTok wasn't invented yet. They had to do what they could, and that was driving with the lights off.
Right. Yeah. They do then after they hit the witch, they start running through, and it kind of inexplicably, but they run through a cemetery, and I'm immediately like, oh, that's a pet cemetery. And then one of them actually says, what is this, a pet cemetery?
Yeah.
Can't get away with that stuff these days, but I guess in the early 90s, you could sort of drop those references without it being too annoying. They find a shack. Inside is basically a diorama of the pet cemetery, which I thought was kind of cute. Yeah. One girl is supposedly into occult stuff, so she recognizes something as a page from the Book of Shadows.
Book of Shadows.
And she immediately says,
guys, this is a spell to bring back the dead.
And I just remember, from the first movie, the witch specifically did not have the ability to bring back the dead. So yes. I am going to be that nerd and just be point of order. We are, from this moment on, we're messing with the Pumpkinhead mythology here, which we do quite a bit during this movie.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the point of this podcast,
it is all
tracking these things.
This script by Konstantin and Ivan Chachornia, who apparently they don't have any other writing credits other than this.
Which makes me wonder if that was a pen name, perhaps, because they have no other writing credits.
Is this an example of they were only able to get some rights? So it's the costume can go, the Pumpkinhead guy. That Pumpkinhead himself, that's all yours. You can have that. Yeah. But none of the mythos can happen.
Which is so weird. How do you carve that stuff up? That's so strange.
That's all just speculation on my part, or something where they're just I got it, and they just did their own thing. Because it is wildly different than what we've seen before. Which I don't, again, for this being sort of a folk horror thing, I don't fully mind, particularly this early in the game. If we're who knows what Pumpkinhead is? Yeah. But what it ends up being is not that interesting.
Right.
But speaking of point of orders, what do you think that flashlight they were carrying was for? Because when they got to the cabin, it is just lit with floodlights.
Oh yeah.
It's just any attempt at the atmosphere of one just does not happen. There's no attempt at it. It's just it feels a little bit more something you see on Svengoolie or something like that. Some more cheapo, but it knows that it's a cheapo kind of thing where it's just this. Here's some fog.
Flat lighting.
Yeah, here's some fog. That's you know what we're going for. Fill in the blanks. Yeah. Because I was getting a huge kick out of that. We're what is this place? And he's waving the flashlight around. It's is that even on? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Old woman walks in. She's got a pretty cool voice, but not quite as good makeup, considering how much we love the makeup from the first one. The guy tries to take a vial of blood and strikes the crone in the process, and she wakes up immediately and curses them that they will all die. Curse you all to the vengeance of Pumpkinhead, which is kind of a fun line, I guess.
Yeah, because the crone in this one, Miss Aussie, I believe she's called.
Yep.
Miss Aussie. She is much less like this malevolent figure, and she's just like an old lady that she's like old lady plus. She might have some powers or something on. She's blind, but
these eyes can see more than you know, boy.
And she kind of knows what's going on. Well, also when she just got hit by a car and then just takes a salt pill and walks it off. But definitely less the just this absolute evil that you're dealing with. Like in the first one with Lance Henriksen, it was much more like this. I am the gatekeeper of these powerful evil spirits, and this is more just like, hey, I dabble. Don't mess with this.
And not just that, but there's no sense of kind of warning or ominousness to it. It's just kind of I'm going to do this to you. There's no threat or unknowable outcomes.
Well, it all comes after the fact. She Ralphs out after he knocks her down. She's like, "You're all gonna die. You're all gonna die." And they have, when they first got into the cabin, Marcy lights a bunch of candles and puts them up because she doesn't have electricity in there.
Right.
So when Miss Aussie, who's blind, doesn't know that they're there, tries to get up, she pulls down the tablecloth, knocking over the candles and starting a fire. And I'm sorry, it's funny because when it happens, you just see the fire and then you just hear this voice off camera go, "Oh no." It's very funny. And also you probably noticed when she pulls on the tablecloth, you see the Necronomicon.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Also KMB Effects.
Yeah,
which
KMB
we
Effects did some stuff.
Didn't
on this
mention.
movie.
Yeah.
Which some stuff I would say, because this definitely the effects are not as Pumpkinhead one-y as Pumpkinhead one.
So the kids go to the pet cemetery again. They dig and they find a coffin and open it. They start the spell to raise who is in the coffin. And I will admit at this point, I was a little confused why.
Yes, it's basically Danny is they find that blood and she finds a spell and Danny's apparently not believing in it, but also just being hey, let's try to raise the dead. That'd be fun. It's Friday night. We got nothing else to do. So they dig open this grave and it's clearly Tommy in there.
Yeah.
And when they pry it open, you see the disfigured corpse and everyone reacts negatively.
What the fuck is that?
No.
Man, the dude's dead. Quit roasting him. He can't help it.
Yeah.
Good God.
But I'm right in guessing that was an arbitrary, correct?
Yeah,
they didn't go to it knowing that it's Tommy, aka Pumpkinhead-ish.
No, because they were they were out cruising around with their lights off, hit that old woman, and then Jenny was like, we gotta go see what happened. Because Danny's like, well, let's just bolt. But Jenny's like, we gotta go make sure she's okay. They stumble on the house. Then when they meet her, they're like, whoops, that was us. Do you want to exchange insurance? And she's like, no, get out of here. Yeah, what's insurance? Leaves, and then Danny hits her to they've all left. They don't see Danny club her to take this stuff, which I do like them keeping for the sort of retelling of the first one, how they're still the one asshole that ruins it for everybody. For Joel in the first one. So yeah, he's just there's probably, there's a grave here. Let's go dig this up. They don't know who it is. They don't know anything about. I also do when they dig it up, the shovel cam. You get a shot of it. The camera's attached to the shovel, and it just made me think of Better Call Saul, because particularly towards the end of that series, every episode was what can we put a camera on this time? Like a chair that slides to the side or a garage door.
So they figure out that the witch is still in the shack and it's burning, and the fire starts spreading to the cemetery, wakes something up that has a giant claw like Pumpkinhead. So I was just again, I'm losing the motivations. I'm losing the mythology behind. Does Tommy become Pumpkinhead in this instance, or was he Pumpkinhead originally?
Well, there's definitely some confusion around that, and as some of the reveals happen, it doesn't make that any easier. But it seems like right now, as of this, right now, Danny knocks her over. Ms. Aussie's like, curse you. I'm going to curse you with Pumpkinhead.
Right.
At the same time, they're doing the spell, pouring the blood they found on the body and all this stuff. Jenny's like, this sucks. I'm leaving. goes and discovers that the cabin is burning, comes back to get help because she doesn't know what to do.
Yep.
They all go over there, and then as Miss Ossie is burning almost to death, the coffin starts erupt, and it's supposed to be like something is coming to life in the coffin, like light shooting out from underneath, and then eventually it's supposed to be that the coffin lid like blows off. But
yeah.
I'm sorry, it kind of just looks like he farts that coffin open. It's just like, sorry, that was me, because it's just like this perf. And it's really unimpressive. It is a real bummer. And yeah, but you do see a claw come out. So Pumpkinhead is going to come get him. But then they kind of change what that means. Like the movie can't decide who's getting vengeance, what Pumpkinhead is getting vengeance about. So
right. This is where all of my mythology questions just kind of start, which we can kind of get into as they show up. So Sheriff Garrick shows up at the witch's house to investigate. It's a really decent shot here, really great isolated shot of a scarecrow in the foreground at one point.
What the fuck is that scarecrow?
Exactly. One shot, that's K&B work probably, or it's just like, oh, we got some ghouls that we can place right here.
Yeah, it is like this real
camera foreground.
Fucked up looking like zombie fate. Like, was that a human being that you put up as a scarecrow?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Moving on.
Yeah.
It was
like,
terrifying.
I want to know more about that.
Yeah. Awful melty face guy. But no, they just move on as the sheriff is investigating the burned down house. And these scratches, he picks up this board that he somehow knows was an outside windowsill.
Maybe it wasn't an accident. This is an outside windowsill. These marks are all over the place. From the looks of them, something was trying to claw its way in. I'm just not sure whether it was trying to help her or to kill her.
A farmer goes to see the sheriff and gives him a warning that something is back and we should all be scared. Okay, like a little bit of a harbinger guy.
Well, that again is this sort of callback to the thing I really liked about one, where like everyone knew that the curse happened.
Yeah.
This didn't have the atmosphere to support that. It just felt like, I don't know, he heard a rumor. And I don't know, because he knows that all the kids were out there doing stuff. It's never really explained why or whatever. It's just very convenient. So it doesn't feel mysterious. It just feels kind of tacked on.
Right.
And that there were teens out there, and so the sheriff's very interested in that. And that he's like, I'm not hunting anymore. I'm getting a refund for my hunting license because I'm the one that's being hunted now. And of course, doesn't want to explain.
Sheriff goes to see Danny while he's washing his car. There's a tense scene where Danny tries to
just trying to get all that old lady smell off his car.
off the front bumper. Yeah. Tries to convince everyone that he was at home studying all night, and Dad Judge just completely covers for him.
Study. Yes. The boy is quite a student.
I bet he is. Sharp car, too.
Not another one like it within 50 miles.
Somehow, I figured that.
Well, so this is an insight into their relationship, which actually is one of the things I find most fascinating in this movie. You get the sense that the judge is a big power player in town. Like he's already made a reference to, I believe by this point, he's already made a reference to like getting together a posse, and he's got pull. Everyone seems to answer to the judge. But the way that he talks to Danny, because Danny's like, yeah, I should tell him how I was studying all night. The judge backs him up. But then when he leaves and he's like, I can't cover for you. I've already got you on probation, all this stuff.
Right.
It kind of seems like, what does he have on the judge that you're like
that's true
doing all this? I understand there's a certain amount of like, well, my good name or whatever, but it seems very much like, how dare you do this to me, is more like, I'm trying to help you out, man. Why don't you just let me help you? And then later when they have the party or whatever, he's like, yeah, I got you all the beer and whatever. Like,
I saw that.
There's this weird power dynamic between the two of them that I find fascinating. That I mean, it's not the kind of movie to explore that, but I just really enjoyed that bit.
Cut to Pumpkinhead approaching a barn. He goes after this farmer. It looks kind of good, actually, and not quite as good as the first one. Pumpkinhead just bursts through. This is probably the best kill scene in the movie, where he takes the farmer, throws him on a meat hook, lands upside down, which I laughed at in a good way. Demon claws just start clawing him up. He cuts his arms and legs off. All the while, it cross cuts with the witch in the hospital, who is clearly reacting just like Lance Henriksen was the last time Pumpkinhead went on a kill spree. Yeah. So this is our first big kind of like murder set piece here.
Yeah.
Not bad. Kind of goofy. Not bad, though.
I would go very goofy because they do the great thing, and this isn't unique to this movie, but Ernst is like, he's like, oh Lord, save me. And he runs in the barn, grabs a shotgun, and he gets the shotgun, cocks it, sees Pumpkinhead, and then just runs at him.
Yeah.
You have a gun, but no, I'm going to run at him. I'm like a guy in a video game. I'm just going to run at you.
Exactly.
Russian attack style. Pumpkinhead just picks him up And when he flips him upside down, and they clearly like, okay, well, we don't, it wasn't one shot of him flipping him and then throwing him.
Yeah.
Because they try to just hide it real quick, but they cut to him like being picked up again, and he's kind of hanging like this. So it's like, oh, but what if you'll just think he's upside down? And it does not work at all.
It doesn't work. Still made me laugh.
Even if you just like flipped the image, you know what I mean?
The
like
frame.
For as long as that's on there, you probably could have sold a little bit better. But no, they just kind of have him leaning to the side, and it looks very silly. And then like the physics, it's a very Boba Fett flying at a 45-degree angle. Like the physics of him landing on the hook and then turning upside down don't make any sense. But you're like, yeah, whatever. It's fun.
Not at all. Yeah.
But it was a little silly, and they went a little nuts with the strobe light. For as much as I liked it in 1, I feel like it's a little bit more like Enter Sandman this time, rather than like this sort of more demonic effect.
And by the end, hoo boy.
Speaking of that, hoo boy, and I don't know if this is the first time you see it, if it's a little bit later, the Pumpkinhead vision is
the Predator vision.
Yeah, it's like Predator. Yeah. It's like red, but like basically they take an image, overlay it, like they take like a shot of a barn and they like overlay it with the same shot, but then have that one shot kind of zoom forward a little bit and like fade out in opacity. So it's just it gives you this feeling of like being drunk, you know. It's really like, how does Pumpkinhead get around? That seems very unpleasant. It's got inner ear problems.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Garrick and the nurse show up, investigate the scene. What's her name again?
Delilah Pettibone.
Delilah Pettibone.
She is sort of a connection to the area because she comes from a line of magic users, basically people that were involved in the voodoo magic.
Yeah.
And in fact refers to her grandmother as a sorcier, which at first I thought she said saucier, and I was like, what does that have to do with anything?
So the judge shows up and says it must be the work of a wildcat. And they find a symbol on the barn wall, clawed into the wood and soaked in blood that looks like kind of like a wing, I suppose. I wouldn't know that it's a wing if this movie wasn't called Blood Wings. Yeah. But that's the beginning.
It kind of looks like a simple drawing of a bird, you know, like that kind of like just that M kind of thing. But I love how she's like, oh yeah, he's hung up on a meat hook. That was probably a wildcat.
A jackal
anyway,
or whatever.
Time to drink. I'm a good judge.
Yeah,
the judge, I love how the movie doesn't hide that the judge is a piece of shit. So when the reveal happens later, they're like, you're like, yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we know.
The movie doesn't. They're like, no, look at this guy. He's a piece of shit. It's fine.
Yeah,
you hate him. Now you'll hate him more.
They decide that whatever killed the farmer was also at the witch's house, and they continue the discussion whether or not it was a wildcat or Pumpkinhead, a demon that hill people believe in. So we're finally getting to kind of the point here.
Well, and I love that this scene happens, that the doctor has just come to Garrick's home to drop off this information.
About that.
I always kind of wonder something like this, where you have this tightened deadline, or tightened shooting schedule, all this stuff. Changes get made on the fly in productions anyway. But it's like, can we just combine these two scenes where you go to her for what if she just comes over? And like then Amy Dolenz is putting away dishes and hears that the old lady burned and all of a sudden drops the dishes on the name Pumpkinhead. Ridiculous. But I just love that small town stuff.
Hey, I was going to say small town. Everybody knows everybody else. You just drop by when you got a piece of info. You interrupt dinner. You maybe get a dish while you're being.
I think that's the thing. I think she's showing up trying to get like, I'm sure they got a side I could probably snack.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
we don't know anything about dogs. She could just be eating healthy choice meals by herself.
Exactly.
Like, I would do that.
Meal.
Yeah, I would totally just be like, oh, I stopped by again. I have some new pieces of information.
Texting hasn't been invented yet. I have to stop by and tell you this.
It just happens to constantly be Taco Tuesday. I can't help that. I can't help when I get this information.
I get all my best ideas on Taco Tuesday somehow. Jenny has a dream in her bedroom that also has a cult poster on the wall, which I thought was kind of funny. She's in the bed. Her bed is all of a sudden in a forest. Danny jumps in bed with her, and she then flashes back and forth in the dream of seeing Pumpkinhead over the bed with her with lightning flashes. I have no idea what this is supposed to symbolize or anything.
It felt a little bit like, okay, well, let's get some sex in this picture. But like, we can't do a whole lot. Apparently, they had to, according to Jeff Burr, they had to cut some gore stuff to be NC-17, which like it's not even really that gory. Like, look at Friday the 13th Part 7.
Exactly.
And, even some of those doesn't even seem that gory, and also it's going straight to video. But whatever. As we've talked about before, the MPAA is nothing but fickle.
You're right.
It felt very. My first thought, just bed in the middle of nowhere, is Phantasm. So the,
Yeah.
the,
Oh,
the tall
absolutely.
man is just conjuring up beds, and like this one is like, yep, this one's for the tall man. Just I'm done with work. I'm gonna watch some teens kissing because I'm a weird old creep. And then then it's Pumpkinhead there for some reason, and her connection to Pumpkinhead is very tenuous. Like
Tenuous at best, as they say.
Yeah, the vengeance element of it, because particularly who Pumpkinhead is going after and the reveal there, it is literally an afterthought of him attacking the people burning.
Yep.
That he's got this other mission first, that he was raised up because she cursed these people. What's with these other, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll get into it when we get there. But
so if that wasn't enough gratuitous sex for you, we cut to Leanna Quigley giving the viewers what they want, having sex with a farmer in a barn. She's famous for these types of scenes.
Yeah.
It does make me laugh, though, because the guy ends up saying,
Oh, this beats the hell out of delivering mail.
and I'm just like, well, in general, or are you implying that she just paid you for this work? I was like, oh, did he give up his job as a postman to just like have sex with the nice ladies in town?
Yeah.
One of which is Leanna Quigley.
I didn't know the male gigolo life could be this good.
M-A-I-L, male gigolo. There you go.
I got a package to deliver. Anyway. It's just like, I like that. Hey, Leanna Quigley, will you be in this movie? What do I have to do? Have sex with a guy and scream. It's okay.
Sure.
Like
That's
that.
fine.
That's a little bit of stunt casting that is like, yeah, Leanna Quigley's great, whatever, but like, give her a character at least. Yeah, because she's a lot of fun. But no, they just have her. You get to see boobs, and then the guy's attacked by Pumpkinhead, and that's pretty much it.
And that's it. Yeah.
And this murder scene I didn't like as much. They have Pumpkinhead, it's still the strobe light, but they have this like country song playing.
Yeah.
Which to me doesn't work either as this creepy counterpoint or as a fun. This is kind of goofy, because the movie hasn't been goofy up to this point. Why would you want this to all of a sudden be goofy? I don't know. It stuck out to me pretty bad.
What stuck out to me is Pumpkinhead throws the guy into a big, tall group of cardboard boxes.
Yes.
And that's definitely kind of like set dressing on a cheap movie where you're like, well, God, we need to cover up some cords or cover up some stuff that the camera can't see. We've got 9 cardboard boxes that we can stack up in this corner, and we'll use them tomorrow too in that other shot coming up.
Because they're all for a certain brand of TV, and like I almost call him Andrew Garfield again. Sheriff Cinder, Andrew Robinson, has a line where he's like,
A postman who obviously stole more mail than he delivered.
people in town are just ordering this TV nonstop and not noticing when it shows up. Okay, fine, movie, whatever. But
cool.
I will say that during the scene, highlight of this scene for me is when Pumpkinhead banes the guy. He totally lifts him up and does a backbreaker. Oh,
yeah. Mailman, you are broken.
Yeah, he's doing wrestling moves, folks. It's quality stuff. This is how far Pumpkinhead has fallen, and it's only movie 2.
Partway through movie 2. Yeah, then he walks out and stands in the doorway and just starts screaming at Leanna Quigley. Cut to sheriff, finds a safety deposit box key at the scene of the crime. So the structure of this movie keeps being like Pumpkinhead attacks somebody, then we've got the sheriff investigating the scene. I'm not saying that isn't the way police work, works, but it's just kind of like makes me laugh after every time. Then you got your main character back investigating the scene. It's just like, when are you going to stand in front of the crime here, bud?
Yeah, well, when it gets a little repetitive in that regard, that there's not even like 2 is fine, but then when we get to the third one, it's like, okay, you should have probably,
right.
We should be putting this together faster. But this is he and Delilah are investigating the scene, and that's when the TV line happens. Yeah. But I also like this moment that they find Leanna Quigley. She comes running out, screaming and freaking out, and immediately Delilah gives her this anime-ass diagnosis of like,
whatever she saw scared her so bad her mind couldn't deal with it, and she down.
She was so scared, her mind is just gone. And it's like, you've seen this person for 5 seconds.
Totally.
You don't know anything, but like, no, it's clearly what it is.
It's very Lovecraft type of thing. Like we've seen into the cosmos that is Pumpkinhead, and our minds can't handle.
That's the only explanation for screaming. Is that?
Yeah. An armed posse shows up at the judge's office. Garrick doesn't like the idea of an armed mob looking for the killer, and Judge doesn't care quite at all. Danny is now scared about the fire being set, just like the death in the first film, as you were saying earlier. And he's got to be confident not to admit it, doing his whole blustery thing. The teens end up finding a file on Jenny. Her dark past is that she stole a teacher's car at her previous high school, but she never got charged. And the idea is that her father, the sheriff, got her out of the jam. Yeah. So she squealed on everybody else. So all the teens now are worried that she's going to squeal on them and she'll be protected by her sheriff.
Yeah, like the way they set this up, I thought it was going to be like a lot darker than just, not stealing a car isn't great, but just like the way that they like, oh, she's doing it again and all the stuff. I thought it was going to be really, really bad. It wasn't like she did this, and this. It was like she did one thing.
Right. Yeah.
Teens.
Garrick finds out what is in the safety deposit box. Few personal effects, but also newspaper clippings. Deformed boy runs wild in woods, and the boy's name was Thomas Parnell.
The mailman is we discover along with other people were the boys at the beginning that were murdering Tommy. Why would you save that?
Right.
I want to remember when I killed a boy. It's a weird thing to say, but these are some weird people, I guess. But
exactly, yeah.
Looking
back on the good old days here when we killed children in mines.
That was a good time. And I have a whole, and not to get too point of order about it, but so this is essentially this swamp witch, this hermit old woman that lives in this house that will feed Tommy, who apparently lives in the woods. Awfully clean for living in the woods, but he lives in the woods apparently. He dies. Who goes and finds that out? Yeah, because none of the dudes are going to be like, oh yeah, no, we killed this kid. They didn't make it sound like the mine was still necessarily open if he's hanging around on this thing.
That's true.
So it seems more likely she would just grab him and bury him. But no, they make a whole thing about how he why would it be in the news? Whatever. That is too granular for this movie. Right. These newspaper clippings spark something in Andrew Robinson. Remembers, I remember this kid. Yeah. Has a flashback about leaving his toy in the forest and coming back the next day to get it. And Tommy is playing with it on top of the old mine thing and falls off. Andrew Robinson saves him. Tommy's thankful, but also afraid because people have seen him and he's freaking out. Yeah. So you have the first one was all about vengeance and how that quest for vengeance can change you and make you bad and all this stuff. And this one is really just much more of a Jason knockoff. Deformed kid gets vengeance for his mother. And it's that same kind of thing where it's not unheard of. And it's common in horror to have deformity be a sign of bad, that he's he's deformed, but is he deformed enough to kill? Right. He wants they want him to be pitiable, but also here's a reason that he might kill someone, but look at him though. He is kind of a freak. So this is really his only option is to do this because he can't have a regular life. Exactly. It's a weird thing, but it feels very much more like Pumpkinhead is Jason than a more magic thing.
And the crone is mother.
Yeah.
Garrick wants the coroner's report on that boy, and the mayor arrives to dress him down and goes on a full Jaws-like rant, basically, right here about tourism.
But you must have heard the talk that maybe what we're dealing with here ain't human.
Do you believe that?
Well, of course not. But a lot of folks do. A lot of tourists do, if you know what I mean.
And it was important to have a creature running around, it's funny to me because I didn't think that this town was a tourist stop for everybody. Yeah. So I know it's corny, completely corny, but all you need is 2 lines prior that just says the 50th anniversary parade's going to go off whether there's a creature or not, that kind of thing. Right. We need to know that there needs to be some tourism happening in this town, but this is the first element of that idea.
It makes it seem like he thinks he can get tourism by doing this.
Exactly.
And we've all seen Pottersville. We know how that goes. Nothing's stopping you from doing that anyway, Bubba. You can just say well, we've got the Jersey Devil down here, whatever. It does not matter. Who's going to prove you wrong?
Yeah. Kids go to the cemetery and they see the Pumpkinhead body is gone. Yeah. The Tommy body, if you will, is gone. We flash over to I guess it's just a big compound where a bunch of chicken fights happen, correct? A bunch of illegal chicken fighting.
Yeah, apparently, it's apparently the end of this night's cockfighting extravaganza.
Yeah, the Knox brothers. Yeah. So Pumpkinhead shows up and attacks one of the guys that puts it on. One of them gets his eyes poked out by the chicken claws, which I thought was pretty fun. Like Pumpkinhead tosses him, and then the chicken just starts clawing his eyes out.
That was absolutely fantastic. I don't know who that other guy was. He looked like Buster Keaton. Like, man, what a horrible final role for you. But
what a fall. Yeah.
One of the brothers is Kane Hodder.
Yep.
You get another fine Kane Hodder performance. Don't give him a lot to do.
No. But there is what I'm talking about. His name was not in the front credits. Yeah. And so I was very delighted when I saw Kane Hodder.
Same, because when I watched it the second time, I was like looking for it in the credits, and totally did not see it.
Nothing at all.
What's so fascinating about this scene is, so we've talked before, particularly in the Jason movies, about there were several of them, like in 5 and 6, where you just have these characters that show up as cannon fodder.
Right.
As slash fodder to just get killed. But like, these guys are integral to the plot, but they don't give you any information about, they just show up now. So much so, in fact, there's the two of them that have this little scene about the cockfighting and whatever and talking, and then right as Pumpkinhead shows up, a third guy just wanders into the scene.
Yep, exactly.
That I thought was the judge at first, because it seems like the judge wearing a funny hat. It's like, what's going on? And then Pumpkinhead just kills them all. Like, and this, like, I've been rewatching Nicholas Winding Refn's Copenhagen Cowboy on Netflix, and like the way this scene like looks towards the concept of being arty. Yeah, where when Pumpkinhead shows up, you have these like isolated shots of each of the characters just look at the camera like freaking out with the strobe light going behind them, and I immediately thought of like, man, I bet Nicholas Winding Refn could sell this. Because like just
a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it would be cheap too, but like just make it really long and drawn out and strange, and that would rule. But that wasn't the style at the time. But it did save itself by the guy getting thrown in the chickens, and the chickens immediately go for the eyes. I own chickens, and I've had chickens peck at my hand before as I do stuff, but I've never had them actually go for my face. But I like the idea. They're immediately like, yeah. I mean, they're also not fighters, so I don't know. That might be
there. You go.
That might be.
Well, that's your problem.
I did not raise them.
That is your issue. Yeah. But this scene does feel so removed from the rest of the story leading up, because we don't know who these people are. We find out later how they fit, but
there's no indication of like, hey, Sheriff, watch out for these cockfighting brothers.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah. So the sheriff is now studying some old books. Always a good scene, where he's got to pore over some stuff, and he learns about demonology, which is great.
But that confuses things further, because he talks about in the voiceover, he's talking about how
the legend persists in rural American folklore. Deformed children were denounced by mountain priests as hellspawn, said to be the union of a demon invoked by witchcraft to right a wrong, and a woman born of mortal flesh.
And then the movie goes, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It leans pretty heavily on the idea that Tommy is perhaps the son of a woman, most likely Ms. Ozzy, and Pumpkinhead. And it's like, well, okay, well, that's real shitty, because like you actually have then just gone, well, no, he's evil. He's the spawn of evil, rather than being like, he's a sad boy with a disease. And they went, no.
Right.
Yeah, maybe, but that's also evil, which, okay.
That is evil as well, yes.
Not great.
The witch finally dies in the hospital bed, then sits back up and announces that,
this is a big ask. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot in the podcast like this. And I know, like, the body does things when you die, but if I die... Can you like flip me over or something, just so I don't start giving a whole bunch of exposition and explaining the plot of what's going on?
I want that. Oh, I absolutely want that.
All right, I'll find someone else, because I do not. That's just embarrassing.
I do not want that power of attorney that you want to give me, because I still want to, like, I'm going to start doing Three Stooges shit to your like face and stuff like that.
I'm trying to talk. Because she just sits up and is like, okay, hey everybody, I'm dead, but here's what's going down. And it's not even like that magical of a thing. Like, it's a scare when she sits back up. You're like, oh, it's going to go down. And then she's like, all right, story time. Gather around. I got to explain. All right. No one knows what's going on in the plot right now. I got to explain what's happening. Let's all get on the same page, movie.
Before I died, I was the guardian of the soul. Tommy's soul. A very special soul. His mama. Nothing special about her. But his papa. Come on. His papa was the one you called Pumpkinhead.
So she laid with Pumpkinhead and bore a Tommy?
Or someone else did. And then she's like, was just watching over him. You could maybe make the argument that she was in fact as the guardian of his soul is like, I'm just here to make sure he don't get up to no nonsense, that he doesn't fully Pumpkinhead out. But that doesn't, you don't get if they're trying to paint him as the victim, you also don't get to be, well, he was this cauldron of boiling hatred just waiting to happen. It doesn't. The movie's very confusing in that department, but it does make it sound like that she's his guardian, and that now that she's dead, well, you're all screwed now. Even though nothing has fundamentally changed, Tommy is still on the rampage he was. That pretty much establishes at this point that this Pumpkinhead is indeed Tommy.
Yes.
So you have everything from the last movie where the vengeance will turn you into Pumpkinhead, basically. Out the window.
Out the window. So she explains that there needs to be 6 boys need to be killed. The Red Wings. So you're like, ooh, gosh, what's the Red Wings?
He's a big hockey fan.
It's not that much better, frankly. It's just like they start looking up what a Red Wings can mean, and in a yearbook, they find an auto club from 1958 called the Red Wings. And it's just like, it's just not scary. It's just not compelling. It's not occult interesting.
What I love is that they go, well, okay, so we had this crazy information from a dead body. Let's look at yearbooks. Yeah. You know, like there's again, like this voiceover line of like, something seems familiar. And then it's just them looking at yearbooks. Like, that could have been a microfiche. Come on. But, you know, that's another setup. That's another location. We can just do it all here. But just that thread of getting from this information to the information is going to be in these yearbooks. Because he does, like, the sheriff does have an idea, like, that does sound somewhat familiar. And it turns out the Red Wings are, an auto club, and it's all the people that have been killed thus far. But there's a 6th person, because they're like, wait, there's only been 5, only been 5 murders. Who's the 6th person? Oh, it's the judge.
It's the judge.
Who could have guessed?
Yeah. So we cut to the judge in the aforementioned scene where he's stocking up a cabin full of booze for his son and his friends to party in. Jenny is cold, so Danny goes in to get her jacket, and it's his dad's Red Wings varsity jacket that he has lying around.
The only jacket in the house.
Exactly. Yeah. All the teens are hanging out in a clubhouse type thing. Occurs to me here, too, that, at this point in my first watch, of course, it was just like, all the teens are still alive.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different from and there's a story, dumb story reason, but I just thought like, we're this late in and there's 5 teens still alive here. Anyway, they want to come forward about killing the witch, and of course, Danny pulls a gun to keep them in line.
Yeah. As you do with your friends, sometimes people mouth off and because they're increasingly freaked out about all the death that's going on. And so is Danny, but he takes it out with a gun.
The judge finds his house covered in the Red Wing symbol. Before Pumpkin busts through the door here, I do want to take a moment and just think about Pumpkinhead finger painting on the walls to make all those like red blood symbols. I don't know whose blood it was, if he had a satchel full of blood, but he was delicate with it, but he made all those symbols.
And then goes back out and hides behind the door. He's like, oh man, I can't wait.
It's great.
I wish I could see his face when he sees these.
Yeah, I should have set up a camera for this. This is going to be great.
Someone invent GoPros.
Bob Saget, here I come for America's Funniest Home Videos. The judge draws a pistol as Pumpkinhead bursts through the door. He ends up shooting him a bunch, and then Pumpkinhead just backhands him through a window. That's it.
Talking about going to the war with the armor you have.
Yeah.
When Pumpkinhead blows open the door.
Yeah.
He hits his head on the door frame. It's just clearly this bonk. Oh, they just roll with it. But you're like, okay.
Either that was the only halfway decent good take, or they didn't even notice like at the time.
Yeah. They're like, we
just figured it out in the edit.
We do not have money to blow this door twice.
Right.
We don't have the door skateboard technology they did in Phantasm 2. We have to have to just do this. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it just, I'm already so not engaged with this movie that I'm noticing it.
It was kind of cute, if nothing else. Somehow the judge starts seeing Pumpkinhead as Tommy, which is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
And then he just gets his skull crushed by giant claws.
R.I.P. that guy.
I just call him the doofy kid because I can't remember his name, but like one of the teens from the main group goes out and tries to pull the car around. He gets tossed through the window, bloodied and dead.
Again,
so
total Jason style. Because it's also it is right with like, oh man, Paul's been out there a long time, thrown through the window.
Yep.
Like,
exactly.
Pure Jason.
Yep. Again, showing that Pumpkinhead has a playful side. Like this is motivating.
He's having a good time.
Pumpkinhead grabs a metal post and impales Soleil Moon Frye with it, and then grabs the other guy, her boyfriend, shish kebabs the two of them into a nearby post, which is actually kind of cute. It reminded me of a Jason kill too.
It was great, but there's one scene, if you look, and if you look closely, it's not something that's immediately obvious, because Soleil Moon Frye's laying on the ground and Pumpkinhead comes over and stabs her down with it and then like lifts her up, and it's a lot cheaper effect than lifting up a guy with his shotgun because it's all waist up. So it's just Soleil Moon Frye basically has to stand up. But then there's a shot of Pumpkinhead when the boyfriend shows up. Pumpkinhead turns and looks, and when Pumpkinhead turns and looks, you can see the pole going into the back of Soleil Moon Frye, and then out of the front is like at a 45 degree. It's like a completely different angle. But it's like, it's fine because you're looking at Pumpkinhead. But I got a big kick out of that all the same.
Posse arrives. There is a shot here that's a bit of a Spike Lee cam on the bottom of Pumpkinhead, just like kind of do the right thing style, which is really great. Yeah. They only do it once, but I was just like, oh, what if Spike Lee directed a Pumpkinhead movie? This is what it would look like here.
I also like the idea that, I mean, it's brought up several times to this, that the mayor, or I'm sorry, that the judge just has this like posse of goons that he can just call up whenever. Just summon from their little Pokeballs. Right. I choose you, Cletus. And they show up with guns.
For sure, yeah. Pumpkinhead runs after Danny and then just pulls off Danny's head in a pretty decent
that was pretty good.
Gore shot. Yeah, pretty good just from the side.
Yeah. And I was not sad to see Danny go.
Of course.
But, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not even that these characters, that these teens are unlikable. They're just not even really there. There's just not much to them because they have this sort of
too many characters.
Yeah, they have this weird split story going on. Like it would almost be more interesting if these were all the kids of the people that killed Tommy. That it's like visited on them, or sins of the father, that kind of thing. But no, they just went, what if we do both? What if we just have like a teen slasher and this? And it doesn't really. Yeah.
He terrorizes Jenny for a while, and this is when I was really noticing the constant lightning. Just does not stop here.
Non-stop. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, Sheriff pulls out a little necklace totem that the witch had left to him in an earlier scene. They're now at the mine shaft, and he pleads with Pumpkinhead not to kill Jenny because she wasn't involved in his death. And I was just like, oh yeah, that. Come on.
I love that he tries to get Pumpkinhead on a technicality.
Yeah.
You can't prove she was there, Pumpkinhead.
The sheriff just actually Pumpkinhead and just like got her to leave Jenny alone.
Destroyed with facts logic.
Damn it.
but Pumpkinhead goes for it. He's like, well, you're right. And lets Jenny go. And then all the hootin' and holler and hillbilly show up. The posse shows up and the sheriff's like, get out of here, Tommy. And go where?
Right.
He's a spirit of vengeance. What's he supposed to do? But even though
fly away on some blood wings, maybe if they would have given him some wings.
If you listen to the song at the end, he can't fly because there's blood on his wings.
Oh,
there's a Pumpkinhead song over the credits. There's two Pumpkinhead songs over the credits. I'll talk about that during the credits. But even though guns up to this point have done nothing to Pumpkinhead, the problem apparently was there haven't been enough guns.
That's true.
Because when the posse shows up and starts shooting him, then it starts actually affecting.
Well, more guns, yeah. More gun rule. Yeah. There is a moment when, they're going for a dramatic ending here and Pumpkinhead like raises his arms to the side and you can absolutely see the fishing line puppet strings.
Yeah, it's real sad.
Pulling off screen.
It's sad, not in the way that they intend the scene to be, but more just like, oh, you're going for it. Like my heart goes out to you, but this effect just didn't happen.
Didn't work.
And it just looks really pathetic. And the movie's supposed to be sad because it's supposed to be like, Tommy's back on because Pumpkinhead falls on the hook. And it's supposed to be like Tommy back in the chains. This, he didn't escape from anything. This is the same fate. And but it's this sad puppet just like waggling his arms.
Yeah.
And then when he finally falls over, it's very much like someone just took a hand out of Kermit and he just crumples.
Oh, well, that would make me sad. To be honest,
it's sad, but in a different way.
Yeah. That's what happens when you put a strobe on some fishing line. It's gonna show up because it's backlit.
Yeah.
Finally falls down the mine, and the next morning at the scene, Sheriff finds the old fire truck.
And it does the thing that I hate this. When movies, so he sees the fire truck and it flashes back to Tommy playing with the fire truck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
What other fire truck toy has there been? How
it was
dumb
only
do you think
60
we
minutes
are?
ago.
But, yeah, but whatever. So they do that, and then he's like, oh, and everything's fine with Jenny has apologized to her dad for hanging out with the bad kids and causing all the trouble. And he's like, well, it's fine. This attempt at an emotional storyline we've had is quickly dispatched.
Exactly. And that's it.
But then over the credits, you get a song about Blood Wings and Pumpkinhead 2. And then when that song ends, it goes into a little bit, which I think is from Pumpkinhead, the first Pumpkinhead, that's almost like a rap about Pumpkinhead, but it plays a little bit more like Devil Went Down to Georgia, that kind of spoken kind of thing. Yeah. But it's rappy enough that's like you think about the 90s and those movies that end with, like the Addams Family or Kazam that ends with raps.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we jump into our final thoughts, let's honor our dead. Miss Aussie, played by Lillian Chauvin, burned in house, dies later in the hospital. Ernst, played by Joe Unger, thrown onto meat hook, slashed and dismembered. Red Byers, played by R. Hay Milhoff, back broken, thrown through door. Brian Knox, played by Will Houston, thrown, claws through head. Fred Knox, played by Chuck Ehrenberg, clawed through stomach. Keith Knox, played by Kane Hodder, clawed through stomach, stomped. Judge Dixon, played by Steve Kennelly, head crushed. Paul, played by Alexander Polinsky, thrown through window. Marcy, played by Soleil Moon Frye, impaled on stake. Peter, played by Hill Harper, impaled on stake. Danny Dixon, played by J. Trevor Edmond, head torn off. There's 11 this time. Higher body count.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot, really. And they were not really related, as we were saying earlier. That's the kind of big thing for me. These kids have nothing to do with Pumpkinhead's vengeance except for the killing the witch, which, that ain't good either, but it just doesn't seem as cohesive to the story.
Yeah. Or something where it's like if they put it in motion and they were the ones trying to stop it, because crap. It just seems like very ancillary to the whole thing. And it makes me wonder what this script started as versus what it ended as.
Yeah.
Because like I said, maybe there was some stuff, changed and truncated because they ran out of time or they don't have the time to do this. They don't have the budget to do that. What happened there? Or was it always just like nonsense? They're like, whatever, get it done, put butts in, we just need rentals.
Exactly.
Put some boobs and blood in there and we're good.
Yeah.
Don't know. It's live entertainment, so it can go either way.
Yep.
It's kind of amazing because we've watched movies before that have had like this rushed deadlines and like no budgets. Immediately I'm thinking of Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And how like it's not like that's not a cheap looking movie. But I think some of like the film quality saves it for me just because it seems like a movie and different in area. Whereas this has this the film quality of this 90s stuff, having grown up in that time, resonates with me a little bit different.
Sure.
And so it just immediately feels way cheaper. It feels like an episode of Xena or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So, jokes aside, would this movie have benefited by multiple Pumpkinheads running around in the swamp?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think so. So
or if like each of the guys that killed Tommy became a Pumpkinhead and to come after the kids, like, oh, I'm going to activate this other curse I had going on.
Right.
I was waiting. These guys were in my back pocket. I cursed them, but now that I have a reason to use it.
Obviously, that's way more budget than I'm sure they didn't have and all that kind of stuff. But just thinking from like a elevation standpoint, where do you go in part 2?
Because like, because even the fact that Ms. Aussie like is having this connection with Pumpkinhead and apparently it's bad. She's reacting to him killing these people. And then she dies. That doesn't change anything.
Exactly.
And of course, Lance Henrik said dying changes Pumpkinhead.
Yeah. And there's no morality tale here that I can grab, which is part of the appeal to me in the first one, where it's just like Lance Henriksen, he started feeling bad about it pretty immediately and he regretted his decision, but he still made his decision. Then he had to live with it, and he becomes Pumpkinhead, and he dies in the end. Because if you invite vengeance, you're gonna die.
Yeah, and it's not like that's a new story or like a new concept, but like it's done in a great way. Like it's there's a reason this story's been done a bunch of different times. Right. This is much more like, I guess, don't hit old women with your car.
Well, that's a nice idea.
Yeah, but if I don't know, if you need a movie to tell you that, you're already like too far gone.
You know.
All right. What about a motorcycle? Is that still cool?
Right,
is that a gray area?
Jet ski. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where they just focused more on plot than the ideas or anything else. Let's just have some people run around and a monster kill them.
Sure.
And I mean, it's K and B, but I don't know, like the Pumpkinhead himself seems way much more like a guy in a suit.
Didn't have a great silhouette, like we really liked in the first one.
Yeah, it's not the same. And like the monster, like the monster itself, like looked pretty cool. Close to the face were pretty great looking. It didn't have the I feel like the same level of articulation, but again, no budget, whatever.
You got to know how to light a monster if you're going to have a monster.
I think that's the big thing, is that a lot of it is because this movie just seems very rushed. It seems like, and I'm not trying to disparage Jeff Burr at all, because I haven't seen a lot of what he's done. But when you're just like stepping up to get this thing done, I'm sure there's a lot of like, let's just get this thing done.
Right. Yeah.
Like you gave me no money and no time. This is going to be what you're going to get.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's very much like just pretty flatly lit. You can kind of tell like where like with a good example is the Pet Cemetery thing, as you called it, with like the bone tomahawk looking grave stuff.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, clearly you had one camera set up. You had the teens go this way. You had the teens go this way.
Yep.
Like let's just maximize our budget. Let's, we can get both those done in this one time. Every single like conversation is just shot reverse shot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not very interesting or dynamic or does anything to like get the drama going, something like that. It's just very matter of fact. It's very it's very workmanlike of like, this establishes, does what's on the page.
Yep.
These characters talk, they do this, and we're moving through it. Yeah. So congratulations, Jeff Burr, you brought in a movie. or like Silent Night Part 3, where Monty Hellman was like, yeah, we did this movie in no time and I'm very proud of that. I mean, you should be proud. You did it, Jeff Burr.
It's hard.
But solid, like you passed the assignment.
Right.
I can say that much.
Right. Well, we will look forward to part 3, I'm sure. I think it's called Ashes to Ashes, I believe. So
will Roger Clinton come back?
That's what I'm hoping. Know. Yeah.
What's with his guitar?
Right.
Well, I love that. I just love that. It was like, did you cure my guitar? Well, it's in tune. Right. You just had a nurse tune your guitar? Like, you ass.
She moonlights as a guitar tech. Sometimes, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. So next week we'll be hitting part 3. I believe they were Sci-Fi Channel straight to cable movies, which I've got real high hopes for. Let me tell you that.
Oh yeah, the things that Lance Henriksen has been like, I'm so sorry I was a part of these. Great, yeah, we're in good hands. I'm worried this is as good as it's going to get for sequels.
Oh, I agree.
What we just saw right now.
It's going to hurt a bit. So thanks everyone for watching along with us. Before we run out of here, what's going on over at John and Alex Hate Stuff?
Over on John and Alex Hate Stuff, we will be checking out No One Will Save You from this year. Alien invasion movie.
Perfect. And we're still working on a couple of bonus episodes for the Halloween season. I'm hoping to get those put together sometime this month, and we'll talk about some more newer horror movies, I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or old ones. I don't know. Just non-franchise ones. So
just something else.
Yeah. But thanks a lot for watching along, listening along with us. Always love seeing when everybody else is watching with us. And you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod. So we'll see you next week.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and on Twitter at hurtabit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.